Hi everyone, Heath here again with another Tech Talk with Coldesi. What we're going to be going through today, I'm going to be doing a video for flushing the M2, but specifically for the X engine. It's a little bit different than the original M2 that came out, which was a C engine, where you would have to go into certain menu functions to get to a flushing. But we're going to show you the proper way to do the X engine M2. All right. A couple of things that we're going to need is we're going to need the flushing solution, not the cleaning solution. I'll show you the difference here. The flushing solution is the green containers. Usually it'll take about 3 liters to properly flush, maybe even 4. If you want to be extra thorough, just go up to 6. You really, if you're ever going to like hibernate the machine and leave it with just flushing solution in it, you'll probably want to get this so that the fluid going into the waste bottle is this exact color. All right, no murkiness, no color to it, no anything. All right, the cleaning solution is a little bit more aggressive. It's for use to clean certain components of the machine, things like that. So, but it's a little bit more expensive too. So that's why I don't use it for flushing purposes. It has a higher alcohol content in it. Okay, so we're going to be using the flush. Lucky for me, I have a warehouse here, but you can also order it by the gallon as well. So that might be a little bit more economical for you. And the basic process of what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be removing all the ink from the machine. Okay, so we're going to do a step-by-step procedure of how to kind of prep the machine to get it ready to go through the flushing process, how to save the white ink that's in the reservoir so you don't have to throw it out or anything to that order, and just go through step by step. Okay, so what we're going to do first, let me make sure my machine is powered up as normal. Okay. I'm going to roll the camera over here to kind of set up the waste compartment. Anytime you want to do a flush, you have to make sure that your waste compartment has been emptied, because that thing will overflow on you. All right. Our waste compartment's right down here at the bottom. A little door here, and then you have your little reservoir cup. All right. And then there's a tube that goes down in here. Let me see if I can lower this down a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. All right. So inside your waste compartment is your waste ink bottle. Okay. If that thing's full, you definitely want to empty it. All right. Looks like mine is definitely full. I did not want to overflow it. What I do is have a nice little 5-gallon bucket down here. And that way I can just pour it right on in there, not make a mess. It is a water-based ink, so you do not need to dispose of it at any kind of weird or like you don't have to have a special chemical company to come and replace it. All right, let's see if we can go back up in here. We get a handy-dandy paper towel. It's always a good idea when you're dealing with the waste compartment to have paper towels handy because it does have a tendency to get messy sometimes. As you can tell from the inside of our compartments, we've had it overflow before. All right, I'll wipe this tube off that was down in the waste bottle here. All right, so this tube is normally located, and I'm going to take the camera off the tripod right here so I can show you up in there, just to be a little bit more thorough. Okay, so inside here, excuse me for getting y'all dizzy. So up inside here, that's your capping station, the bottom of it. And you notice you've got 2 tubes coming out of the bottom there. Right? Those are actually connected to the bottom of the capping station. And then it goes into a Y adapter right there to split down into a bigger tube so that way it can go into your waste bottle and spins onto the tip of the waste bottle. All right, so normally this is tucked up inside this little tray right here. So you have to pull that out of there and kind of wipe the tip off. All right, so then I'm going to let that dangle there for a second. All right. Okay. So now that I have that tube there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set something up where I don't have to use the waste bottle because I don't want to make a chance of overflowing it. So what I did was I got a piece of tubing from Coldesi. This is called the DTG tubing for silicone, SILICON. All right. And then I've got one of the female adapters, and then I've got the male adapter. And then that way I can spin directly onto it and extend that tube down to my bucket that's down here on the bottom. Goes like that. Makes it a little easier, and that way I can actually watch the ink flow through it as well. So it's not technically, you don't have to have that. It just makes your life a little bit easier. All right, but you can just remember to keep an eye on your waste bottle here to make sure that it does not overflow on you during the flushing process. Okay, so now that we have this set up right there, now I'm going to start prepping the machine. All right, let's raise you back up here. All right. So now we're going to deal with the white ink in the machine. We're going to roll around here to the other side. That's like a little roller coaster here. All right, so now there's our white ink reservoir. Still has white ink down at the bottom of it. So I want to try to save all that's in here, plus all that is in the ink lines as well. All right, no, we're not as glowy as we were before. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flush this, or we're going to get all the white ink to basically return to the bottle and empty out the tubing of the WIM system. All right, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to unscrew this lid here. If my WIM system was turning or turned on, all I'd have to do is unplug it, and that way it kills the power. As soon as I plug it back in, know that it will start circulating, and if those tubes are outside of that bottle, you could have fluid or white ink or whatever spill out everywhere. So just be real careful. All right, so I'm unscrewing my bottle lid so that way I can see the two tubes coming into the bottle. I'm going to disconnect my stirring motor so that way when I lift up this, that it's not spinning and I don't take a chance of breaking the little paddle that's inside there. All right, so now I'm going to unplug and then plug back in to start my circulation system. So as you can hear, the circulation system starts coming on. And instead of letting it circulate, I'm going to lift it up to see which tube is dripping. So as I can see, it's this tube over here. It might be different on your machine, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this other tube that's basically the one that sucks ink up and put it outside the bottle. Just like so. So that way it's basically just sucking air through the system here and pushing the ink all the way back into the bottle from the front there. It'll take a few minutes to do that, depending on how much ink you have in the system. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm going to let this run for a few minutes, and what we would do with this after we were done is I would pour it back into one of my white ink bottles, so that way I can save it for later. Make sure that it is an ink bottle and not a pre-treat bottle, of course, or you'll just have a big old brick down in the bottom of the thing. All right, so once all that ink, and I can tell that there's basically just pushing air through here. There's still going to be residue inside there, but it's not going to push more ink through. So what I'll do is unplug the circulation system so it stops running. All right. I'm going to get some an old t-shirt or something to that order, or a bunch of paper towels, so that way I can set this down on top of the thing without making a mess on my machine. All right. Sure, everybody's got a couple spare shirts laying around. All right, so what I can do to save this stuff, I can just tap this off a little bit. If I want to, I can get some paper towels and wipe it off a little bit better. And then I'm just going to flip it over here and just set it to its side. All right, so now I can take this and reclaim it. that bottle off so it doesn't make a mess. Always make sure when you're done dealing with a bottle to recap it. It's always the ones that don't have a cap on it that tend to tip over. They have a tendency to jump. I never knock them off myself or anything. All right, so from here, I would take this cup and I would also probably disconnect it from here and rinse all that stuff off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So give me a pause for a second while I rinse all these little pieces off, and I shall be back shortly. Little tube's got me tight right there. Woo, that was tight. Let me get a pair of pliers. All right, let's spin this off. All right, so now I have this free. I can stick it back here in my bottle. And then I'm going to go rinse this out and make it nice and clean. Okay, so I'll be right back. All right. If you happen to get the motor wet, make sure to immediately dry it off. Get any kind of stuff out there. You probably do not want to plug the motor in if you did get it wet for about 24 hours to let it dry out properly. All right, I'm just going to wipe off any kind of residues, stuff like that. Any kind of dry, flaky ink, I don't want that to go through the system. Yeah, it gets kind of crusty there at the bottle lid here. This is something you probably want to do about every 4 months. You want to flush your system, just to ensure that you don't have buildup or little globbers and stuff that could fall in there. It's kind of a preventive maintenance thing. All right. Also wipe out my bottle, wipe off anything right there. Another thing that by cleaning the bottle out and stuff like that, what it does is help you get any of the sediment or anything that would be down at the bottom of the bottle. Get any of the lip off here. Wipe out anything on the inside. Doesn't have to be spotless, but just don't want any residues in there or any fragments of ink. So nothing on the inside. All right, so what we'll do is we're going to fill this up with flush. If you're clumsy, do it away from your machine, which I probably should, but I've got a warehouse of parts here, so haha. All right. Once I got that filled up, I'm also going to go get another little cup or reservoir. So what I did is to kind of a catch-all here is I cut one of the old liter bottles. I just cut the lid off. So that way I can take this tube that's coming back in. All right. So I know this was the one that was returning. You even might want to put a piece of masking tape on there and just mark it saying the return tube. So it's going into the bottle, whereas this one over here is going out of the bottle. So I can mark that stuff. So I definitely want it to be coming out of the bottle because I want to flush what's inside the tubes there. So I'll reconnect this one. All right, but with this tube, I can pull a little bit of slack up. And if I look down in here, I can see how much slack that I have. So that way I can take this tube and put it over here in a cup and I can hold it. Or I could get something to hold it like this. All right. Let's see if I have any extra slack I can pull out. There we go, just a little bit there. So I definitely want it so it does not want to, I do not want all that fluid leaking out anywhere. All right, so I could also get an extension tube for that one as well. But instead, I'll just get a little clip here, and I'm going to clip it on so that way it stays in place. If I can find one. All right, so instead of doing that, I'm just going to use a piece of tape. So that way this sucker stays in place here. I do not want that coming outside my bottle. Oops. All right, so that way it stays there. Now I will plug my circulation system back in, and I'm going to watch this fluid come out of this bottle, the flushing solution, and start to pump through the system. So to know when I'm done is the fluid will be clear, the same color as I was putting in the bottle. If you don't rinse out your bottles and stuff like that, all this will become murky and all that fluid that's going back in there, so you'll still have that titanium inside your flushing, and it'll basically self-defeating. Because if you were trying to let it hibernate or something like that, all that sediment that's in there that was up in the flush, it's going to start to settle again, and then where's it going to settle at? In your print head. So then, even if you let it flush it out completely, all your lines were clear and beautiful, when you come back and try to set it back up in a month or so, then you probably have clog issues. All right. So as you can see here, it's about to return to the bottle. Let me see if I can turn this a little bit. It's basically making its rounds. There, it's coming back in now. And it's flushing all that white ink residue out of the bottle there. Or out of the lines, per se. This does not flush the dampers, so there's still going to be more to the flushing process after this. So just kind of spitballing here. If you got another extension tube, like I did for the waste compartment over here, then it would you could extend that tube down to a waste container as well. So that way you don't have to use tape or cut a bottle or anything like that. It's the only thing I'm doing is just trying to catch the waste. You don't have to do it exactly as I am. You just got to make sure that you get the fluid out and it doesn't make a mess. That's the cardinal rule. So this will take a few minutes for it to completely flush those lines out. And move some of this stuff out of the way. So as you can tell, the tube is starting to get a little bit clearer. I can still see some white in it, so I'm going to let it continue flushing for a little while. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and start prepping my CMYK bottles, because I got to flush all the ink out of these lines as well. All right, so what I'm going to do is you can order these from Coleman and Company, but if you've got old bottles of ink that you've used before, like 8-ounce bottles, all right, you can just rinse them out really thoroughly, and you can use those as 4 empty bottles. All right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and pre-prep them and load those up with flush. And remember, you only go to about the curve of the neck. Never go above it, or it's going to push fluid through your air system here, which is not good. So let me show you what I'm doing here. All right, there we go. So I got 4 bottles of flush ready to go. Okay, so yeah, let's take a look and see what our white ink line is doing. So the fluid coming back in there still has a little bit of a tint of white to it, so I'm going to let it run for a little bit longer. Basically what I can compare is the 2 tubes next to each other. Okay. All right, so my little alarm is going to go off in just a little bit because I'm going to unscrew these bottles, but that's okay. I can sit there and reset it, just hit the little button on the side and reset it. So what I'm going to do is have a paper towel handy because I've got to wipe the tubing off because I do not want all the residue or the color to get into my flush. So let's go ahead and deconnect this bottle right here first. So just be careful. Don't sling it around or ink will get everywhere. I'll even take the tube, put it inside the bottle, and kind of flick it around a little bit to kind of knock some of that fluid out of it. So that way when I put it into my white ink or the flushing solution, that it doesn't contaminate it. You might have a little bit of contamination there, but that should be all right. I'll go ahead and wipe out my bottle lid a little bit. All right, and then I'll put that ink out of the way. And just kind of shove the little tube right down there with it sticking up so it doesn't drip. All right, just be careful with it. So you'll get the beeping from the air pressure pump, which is normal. Let's get the paper towel on here. Wipe that tube off. If you don't want to get your hands messy, get some rubber gloves. Set this bottle out of the way as well. You're kind of squeezing the tip there to make sure it doesn't contaminate my fluid. If I want to, I can go ahead and put these back on. And I spin the bottle, not the lid. So that way my tubes don't get all tangled. Go ahead and wipe this one out too. Well, darn it. It looks like I broke my T-connector there, so I'm going to have to replace that a little bit later. We'll see if I can get it to fit down in here, though, just for this flushing video. All right, let's do the blue. So what I'm doing there is just flicking the tube out so that way it kind of drains it out a little bit, gets any of the drips out. All right, grab another tube here. Some contamination is okay, especially on the colors, for the simple fact that the colors don't have that much sediment in them at all. All right, last but not least is the black. Okay, so now looking back over here, I just noticed that my lines are completely clear. So let's go ahead and deal with that. So all I have to do is just unplug my little circulation motor, and that stops circulating. Okay, so then I can remove my tape here, and I can hook the tube back up to its normal tube. There we go. I'll feed my tube back down into the bottle a little bit, so that way it doesn't stick up too much. If I need to, I can pull it from underneath. All right, there we go. And then I can turn my circulation system back on, and it'll circulate like normal. Okay, let's finish up this black bottle here. Probably a good idea not to wear a white shirt. As you can tell, I'm wearing a black shirt. All right. Last but not least. All right, everything's hooked back up like normal. So over here on the side of the machine, there's the reset button. It says ink pressure, pump status, pump restart. So what I do is hit that one little black button. It'll beep a couple times. It'll start to fill the air pressure back up. And it fills the bottles with enough air pressure to make sure that the alarm does not go back off. And we're ready to go. Okay, so now I noticed that most of my flush got emptied out from flushing out the white line there. So what I'll do is turn this off, unscrew my bottle, and I'm going to add more flush into it. I only fill it up to about the lid there. If I make a little bit of a mess, I'll get a paper towel out, clean that off. As you can tell, we're a little bit messy too, so don't feel bad if you've got ink in different places that shouldn't be. It happens. All right. Okay, so now I'm set back up like a normal. So I've got clean flushing solution in my white bottles and clean flushing solution in all my 4 colors. Yeah, I've got to replace that little T connector right there. It's split on me, but it is holding pressure. I have to go get a new one once this webinar is over. All right, but it's holding pressure now, so I think we're good to go. Okay, so let's roll back around here to front. That's preparing my ink bottles for the flushing process. All right, so I'll make sure to put these in a very safe place or recap them. I can use those later once I unhibernate the machine. I'm going to take this and pour it in my waste container over here. then just set it to the side. I'm not going to need it for now. Tool bag out of the way. Alright, so now what we're going to do is start the flushing process. There's two ways to do this, a manual way with a syringe, and then the electronic way where we're doing the larger head cleanings, which we're going to be using both. But to quickly get through the flushing process so it's not going to take us hours to sit there and do that many head cleanings to really flush it out, that's what I use the syringe for. So let's pull you around here to the waste compartment side. Let me show you how I do this. Okay. All right. So what I do is take my extension tube here, kind of lay it down. Let's put it out of the way. And then I'm going to hook a syringe directly up to my waste tube. So what this is going to do is pull directly on that capping station and fill this up with all that flushing solution that's been circulating through and all the inks that are in the line. So it will give you pressure back, but just don't pull it past the end here, okay? Because it's actually pulling back towards it. So I have to get that suction in there, but if I pull it too far, it's a really big mess. Once that fills up, you'll feel the pressure go away. If you need to, have a paper towel handy just in case. So that way when you spin it off, you can get any little dots of ink. And then I'm just going to put it down here in my waste bucket. Let's do it again. You'll hear your air pressure pump kick in because you're basically sucking a lot of ink out of there at one time. All right, so just with 2 full syringes, you can already tell up here on my ink lines that they're starting to go clear because I'm pulling the flushing solution through those lines now. We'll continue the process here. If you do not get ink pulling in on your syringe, that means your head is probably not level and is not sealed to the capping station properly. So this is an easy way to troubleshoot that. If it's not pulling ink through like this, you're not sealed to the capping station, which is going to cause you nozzle check problems and eventually start clogging your head. So even the colors are starting to come out of the machine a lot better. Even my solution that's pulling into my syringe is turning gray because the white will take a lot longer to flush out than the color side is. I'm always keeping an eye on my bottles back here in the back, make sure they're not getting too low. Yep, sorry to say, but this is the fastest way to do it. The whole process should take about an hour, hour and a half. But it's better to be really, really thorough than having to replace heads later on down the road. So you notice it's getting lighter and lighter there. It's still got a lot of color in it, but still got to get it out. I want those lines to be clear, just as clear as that fluid coming out of it that I put into the bottles. Looking at the sides of my dampers to make sure they're getting cleared out. And they are. All right, so I can actually look at the little side windows there, little screens, and tell if there's a lot of buildup or ink down at the bottom of them. Yeah, if you look at the sides of your dampers and you notice there's a lot of sediment built up in the bottom of them, that might, and you notice that your white ink prints are coming out a little bit duller. They're not putting out as much ink as when you first got your machine. It's probably a good time. You're probably in that 5 to 6 month range of having the machine, and you'll probably need to replace these 4 white dampers. To replace those, we have videos online of how to do it properly. Everything from taking the head out all the way to putting it back in and making sure that it's level. And you'll be ordering these dampers from Coleman & Company, ColemanandCompany.com. Alright, let me check my bottles back here to make sure I'm getting kind of low back here in the back so I can top those off. I'll let you see there. The white pulls through quicker just because you have 4 white dampers pulling from the same reservoir. So I'll have to refill the white ink reservoir at least a couple times. Check my color bottles. They're still about 2/3 full, so I'll just continue on. See, I can take a look at the lines now and tell that they're getting very clear. Now, I'll have some residues in them and stuff like that from the little feeder valves up here, but the main thing is I'm looking in the sides of the dampers and also the tubing up here and making sure it's clear. There will be some tint to the tubing, but you should be able to see the cleaning solution. They should be clear or clear-ish. Still got a lot of murkiness in it. So, definitely not done yet. And a lot of it can be air bubbles and stuff, so letting it settle for a little bit might help. But is definitely, I can't see through it, so I have to continue on. So how many times might I have to do this? As many times as it takes. You just want to be thorough and make sure that the solution going through your print head and coming out of it is the same as the cleaning solution that you're putting back there in the bottle. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hook back up my tube, and I'm going to do a couple of the longer head cleanings that the X engine does. Sort of like when I was loading the ink up when I first got the machine. So I put my extension back on so that way it can go down here to this little waste bottle. Or I make sure that that tube is back into your waste container here. So that way it doesn't make a mess. And then we're going to come over to the control panel here. All right. So I have to make sure that the machine is loaded before I can do any of these functions. So right now the light is red above my loading eject. Run it out manually if I want to. I'll hit load. And my light will go green over here once it gets loaded. There we go. So then I can come over here to my menu. See if we can focus in on this a little bit better. There we go. So what I do is hit menu once. I hit the down arrow. Oops. See, menu. I'm going to hit the right arrow key, the next arrow, to scroll to cleaning. All right. Or the easy way to do it, just so I can show you again, is you hit menu once, hit the back arrow once, and then it says cleaning. Hit enter. I don't want to do a short one, so I hit the up and down arrow to choose between the list. Longer, long, normal, short, or the longer head cleaning. Hit enter, and it basically does it for 3 minutes. So what this is doing is also activating the print head. Okay? It's actually going through and firing the crystals of the print head instead of just being sucked past them. So this helps get any of those little crevices inside the internal components of the head. It helps get those clean. Before I do that, I will make sure my circulation system is plugged in. So that way it's circulating that cleaning solution so it distributes down through the dampers properly. There is no rushing the cleanings or anything like that. You just have to let them finish. And don't forget your tech maintenance kit too. You also have to maintenance your technician. Give him his coffee. Okay, so I can look down at the capping station and tell that it's getting cleaned out very well. I can tell I have ink flow from the tubing down here. I can watch it kind of run down the tube as it's doing its cycling. See if you can see that a little bit better. I'm going to pull it out of the bottle, Andy. All right. All right, I'll go ahead and go initiate another one. Menu once, back arrow once, it says cleaning, hit enter, hit the up arrow until it says longer, hit enter again, and it says ink fill 3 minutes. I'm going to do this a couple times to just kind of really work the head, as well as instead of just using the syringe, which sucks on the just the capping station. It doesn't actually fire the crystals or the diaphragms that are inside the print head. So it's basically a combination of both techniques. If you run into any issues or you have questions during your procedural of doing this, don't hesitate to create a support ticket or give us a call, and that way you can get some advice if you need to. Okay, so let's do one more. So that would be a process of 3 of them. Hit menu once, back arrow once, cleaning, hit enter, hit the up arrow until it gets to longer, hit enter one more time. It says ink refill 3 minutes, and the print head starts doing its thing. We'll let some of those air bubbles travel through there. Alrighty. So we're now back to print ready. So now I'm going to do a couple more syringes. And we'll do it until I'm finished. Set my little flushing tube down here to the side a little bit. Let's see what we got. So it's definitely got the green tint to it. It's still a little bit milky. And I'm not sure if it's air bubbles or not, like microfusion bubbles, but let's be thorough and get more of that white out of there. All right, still a little milky, but definitely a green color, which is, we're making progress. Well, that's not good. I just dropped my syringe down in my waste bucket. Oh well, let's see what we can do. Maybe I got another one. All right, so found a new handy dandy syringe. Try not to drop your one down into your reservoir there. So I got a nice little floating syringe down in here. Oh well, nobody's perfect. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. Definitely getting really good and green color there. I don't know if you can see it on the video. But there's definitely going to be a lot of air bubbles in there because it's pulling through that foam of the capping station pad. So it has a tendency to really get some bubbles in there. All right. So now I'm going to let the machine sit for a little while and probably do some more of the head cleanings. Let's just go ahead and do some more head cleanings real quick. Set my syringe to the side here. Hook that extension tube back up. Go. And let's do some more head cleanings. All right. Same thing over here. Menu, back, cleaning, enter, up, up, up to longer, enter, 3 minutes. All right. Okay. So once this process is complete and that fluid going into your waste bottle is nice and clear, okay, then you're basically done with the flushing process. You can let it hibernate for a while, okay? I would suggest at least once or twice a week to come in, power on the machine, and do probably about 3 to 6 head cleanings, just normal head cleanings, just by holding down the enter button with the platen system loaded. So that way it just keeps flowing through the actual nozzle face, just in case there is just a little bit of sediment still left over. This will just help with the longevity of letting it hibernate. All right. So I definitely hope this video has been informative. Definitely it should, and like I recommend before, about every 4 months, so about 3 times a year, I will go through and flush this thing completely. All right, it's very important to do so. So that gets all those residues out, things like that. That lets you know if your dampers need to be changed or how long. Once it gets over about 1 millimeter of white ink sediment in the bottom of the dampers, even though you have flush going through it, that's when you should replace that. It keeps a better positive flow of white ink through your head, so you get better quality from the time you got your machine until 6-9 months down the road. It's just a little bit of maintenance that you have to do. All right, so definitely, like I said, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, definitely contact us on the support line. You can call into our 800 number, talk to Darla at our front desk. She can route you to the appropriate people if you need it, or she might be able to answer some of your simple questions. All right, she's very knowledgeable. She's read through all these support tickets, so she's kind of picked up as she's gone. Really great person. Also, if you want to, you can do a support ticket online. If you do it online, there is the ability to attach images. So that way you can take a picture of anything that might be relevant to the situation that's going on. If you're having bad prints, whatever, you can attach photos of those so that way the technician, before he even calls you, can have some solutions for you. It really speeds up the process. All right, so definitely check out Coleman & Company, .com for your DTG, just basic ink supplies, your dampers, your little flushing filter type things. You can order your flushing by the gallon, by the liter, whatever you may need to do, even the empty bottles if you need to. If you need to order the tubing for the extension tubing, just call into the Coldesi number and click on parts, and then once you go there, it is called the DTG tubing WIMS silicone. So that way you can get a couple feet of that and get a couple male-female lures. So that way you can just twist it on the ends of your tubing, and that way you can extend those down. So that way it'll just go a little bit quicker for you. Yeah, definitely look forward to hearing from you. And until our next Tech Talk, this is Heath saying goodbye.